Mr. Simon Dunn. Thank you, Simon. Yeah. Thanks, Shane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'll take you back in a bit of a journey in history. Back in February 1985, I don't know who remembers that here, this hall was packed. It was a slightly different configuration. If those who remember the old hall, the stage was up there at the end and not here behind me. But the reason it was packed was because a number of Mona Vale residents groups had sprung up in protest to the idea of having a 10-storey building built in the centre of Mona Vale. And that had gone through fairly quietly through Warringah Council one just before Christmas in December 1984. And only 2 or 3 people had turned up to find out about it and say something about it. It caused a bit of a rift then within the Mona Vale Chamber of Commerce, of which my father was the secretary of, and the president at that point was Max Delmage, who'd put forward this idea, which was also going to benefit him, as well as closing off Waratah Street and shutting down a few shops and relocating them as part of the grand plan. But the more things changed, the more they stayed the same. And to see so many people turn out here today and take an interest in the suburb and the planning disaster that's about to hit the suburb is very encouraging to know that people still care. And my late father, I think, would be very encouraged to know that the legacy that he left of trying to fight for the environmental, I guess, beauty and precious nature of Pittwater is still alive and strong here as evidenced today. I grew up in Newport when that protest was going on in 1985. I was about 9 years old. And at the end of my cul-de-sac in Newport, we still had a couple of horses in a paddock. That's what Newport was like back when I was growing up there. John Illingsworth, who's filming here today, ended up being my next door neighbour a few years later, and you can attest to how very different we've come along. So wholeheartedly agree with what other people have said about we're not opposed to development. There's been a great deal of good and smart development through Pittwater over those years. In particular, the original plans for Warriewood Valley and the respect that was given to the creek corridors and the planning around that Angus Gordon, as the General Manager of Pittwater Council, had some wonderful ideas there. Of course, state governments successively tried to push back on those plans that Pittwater had come up with largely themselves, trying to double, and each 5 years try and double again, I think, the density. But what I will remark on at the moment is that still where I live in Warriewood Valley, and thanks to some of the planning in a nice have a backyard, albeit a small one for the kids and the dogs, and that is the thing that young families do want, and bringing more units to Mona Vale and high-rise is certainly not the housing that we need, and thinking of the next generation coming through and my teenage kids, it's not something that's going to really keep them in the area. Of course, we know it won't be affordable and they wouldn't be able to afford it anyway. But really, I think what is to be learned from that history is it was the community coming together, sparking those community groups that actually led to the formation of Pittwater Council and breaking away from Warringah. And I guess that's why I'm here today on behalf of Protect Pittwater, which I'm now the president of. The last few years we've been running a campaign to advocate under Section 215 of the Local Government Act to bring back and reinstate Pittwater Council. And the reason I think that's important in this context, and to link it up with what's happening here, is that Pittwater Council was formed with environmental values at its core and as part of its mission statement. That whole instigation of it was that community being unhappy with the planning decisions that were being made further south. Not as far south as Macquarie Street as it seems to be happening now, but that down in DY. And without that community spirit, without that willingness to take pride in the backyard and not worry about people calling us NIMBYs, and to actually think of the lifestyle and the enjoyment of the area for future generations, we wouldn't have had Pittwater Council. So we're in a campaign at the moment to bring that back, so that we have a council who will advocate strongly for the protection of Mona Vale in particular in this context, but also put those environmental values first and be willing to go up against this state development planning tools, to be able to actively protest against them, to actively object wherever possible, and to really push back against the pressures that are coming from Macquarie Street. So we're gathering signatures over on the table in the back there for people who'd like to see Pittwater Council reinstated. I won't go too much into the rest of the campaign and distract from the main cause here today, because the real urgent thing today is to mobilise the community against this excessive development that's coming upon us now. But if you haven't already signed that, you are welcome to add your signatures. And that proposal had initial 4,000 signatures given to the Minister for Local Government, thanks to Jackie Scribby organising a meeting with him for us to hand those over last year. And we've got another 2,000 odd signatures now collected, hopefully a few more today, to add to that, which will give us enough, the Minister says, for him to seriously consider sending that to the Boundaries Commission. And along with that, we've got a very hard-working committee who are putting together a very robust business case to show how Pittwater Council can be more than viable standing on its own. So, but today, I think the main cause is to be supporting SOS Mona Vale and getting into Macquarie Street and really showing the state government that we're really not happy with this, and that this won't go away. This protest, it will only grow stronger and stronger. So let's fight them on the beaches.